Welcome to the next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. It is January 28th, 2026. It is Operation Gladio night, Chapter 85, Episode 516. We're going to be talking Detachment A. Nazis inside the U.S. military? You don't say. You never know where Gladio is going to lead us. Yes, I got the Colonel waiting for me in the back. So let's get to some sponsors, and then it is showtime. Do me a solid, folks, while you're here. Smash the thumb, hit the heart, share out the content. Let's make it a big show. And it is so great to be back.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98. Only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?
Well, there you have it, folks. All those links will be down in the description below. So support the people, support this show. It's what keeps this content free. And now let's bring on the person you all really want to hear from tonight. Colonel, it is good to be back. I miss being behind this camera and microphone. I didn't realize how much I would miss it. And the best way to kick it back off with Gladio. So what rabbit hole are you taking us down?
So I'm going to apologize to whoever sent me Detachment A. They had screenshotted a bunch of videos and stuff. And for some reason, this is a topic that every time I tried to research this on Grok, I broke Grok. It would come back and say nothing. It would just like go into this funk. And even on Gab AI, when I did it, it would like jitter. It's like they don't want you searching on Detachment A for some reason, or they don't want me to do it. So I apologize to the person that sent it to me, because I even went and searched in my messages, and it won't bring it up. So I didn't have time today to go through all of my messages to try to find it. So this was given to me by someone in the last few days, and like maybe a week ago. And I have spent days watching videos. There is a website called detachmenta.org that has videos from people that were part of Detachment A. I'm going to go through this history, and then I'm going to ask you a question at the end. Okay. So Detachment A, what is it? And I'll post an article tomorrow about it. The U.S. Army maintained a clandestine unit that embodied the errors, paranoia, and preparedness. Detachment A, officially known overtly as 39th Special Forces Operational Detachment, and later redesignated as the 410th Special Forces Detachment, was a highly classified entity tasked with stay-behind operations in West Berlin in the early 1950s. Now, official documentation says that it was not created until 1956, but there's a lot of information out there that indicates it was established as early as 1952. So I just want to clarify that up front. This unit, part of a broader NATO stay-behind network, inspired by Reinhard Gehlen, which is a Nazi, post-World War II intelligence operations, represented the epitome of unconventional warfare. Elite soldiers trained to operate behind enemy lines, sabotaging potential Soviet advances in the event of an invasion. Declassified only in 2014. Think about that, 2014. From the early 1950s. That's how classified this was. After decades of secrecy, Detachment A's story is one of covert heroism, personnel hardened by Vietnam jungles, and a legacy intertwined with global special operations. Drawing from veterans' memoirs, historical analysis, and declassified records, what I'm about to tell you explores the unit's origins, missions, personnel, and enduring impact, with a primary focus on its stay-behind ethos. Or hold on a second. Let me move this up. The roots of Detachment A trace back to the aftermath of World War II, when the Allies, quote unquote, dismantled the Nazi regime, but maintained many aspects of it, including the entire intelligence apparatus. Reinhard Gehlen, the former head of the Weimar Foreign Armies East, was recruited by U.S. Allen Dulles specifically to leverage his anti-Soviet networks. Gehlen organization later evolved into West Germany's BND, formed the backbone of Cold War stay-behind operations. This deal to bring Reinhard Gehlen and all of his Nazis into NATO was originally negotiated by General Wolf, Reinhard Gehlen's boss, at Operation Sunrise, which was that infamous meeting with Allen Dulles and Major General at the time, Lyman Limitzker, in northern Italy. These networks, supposedly designed to resist a potential Soviet occupation, drew inspiration from wartime resistance groups and included figures like Otto Skorzeny, the infamous SS commander known for his daring rescues, such as Mussolini's liberation. Skorzeny, who had collaborated with Galen during the war, he worked for Galen. He was basically his trainer. Contributed to post-war training for Operation Gladio throughout NATO. By the mid-1950s, as NATO formalized its defenses against the Warsaw Pact, stay-behind units proliferated across Europe under programs like Operation Gladio in Italy and similar setups all throughout NATO. And if you go back to Daniel Ganser's book, he said they had to set them up. That was a requirement to join NATO. Detachment A emerged officially in 1956 as a U.S. contribution to this stay-behind network, embedded within the Berlin Brigade in West Germany. It was in an enclave surrounded by East German territory. Initially comprising of a handful of Green Berets, the unit went on to grow to 90 to 100 men, depending on what time it was, and existed throughout the 60s. And many of these people they came from Vietnam in the early throes of Vietnam when the French were there, basically taking back over Vietnam. But they also went to Vietnam from Germany after as a rotation, because they had a counterpart, Detachment A, doing activities in Vietnam as well. So they organized into small teams like Gladio cells, specialized in, see if this sounds familiar, demolition, intelligence, and guerrilla warfare, which is exactly what Gladio did. In theory, their mission in the event of a Soviet takeover was to stay behind and conduct sabotage, organize resistance, and facilitate escapes for key personnel. This was not hypothetical. Berlin's vulnerability, highlighted by the 1961 wall crisis, made Detachment A frontline asset in what could have been World War III's opening act. There is a book that was written by James, I'm going to spell his last name, Stejskal. It's called Special Forces Berlin, Clandestine Cold War Operations of the U.S. Army Elite, 1956 to 1990. Why is 1990 important? Because according to this book, 1990 is when Gladio was exposed in Italy. And so supposedly that's when this went away. Did it ever go away?
No, of course not.
He provides the most comprehensive account describing how the unit's formation drew from Galen's templates. He was a Detachment A veteran. He details the integration of wartime tactics from Otto Skorzeny and his commando raids, influencing training modules on infiltration and exfiltration. Similarly, Lane McGregor's book called Checkpoint Charlie, The Cold War, The Berlin Wall, and the Most Dangerous Place on Earth incorporates veteran testimony, painting Berlin as a tinderbox where stay-behind planning was essential. At its core, Detachment A's stay-behind role involved preparing for a Soviet invasion of the West Berlin in hours. Teams were trained to meld into civilian population using false identification, wait for it, hidden caches of weapons, and pre-planned sabotage targets. Missions included demolition of bridges, disrupting rail lines, assassinating enemy officers, and coordinating with local resistance networks, which echoed World War II Jedburgh units, but they were adopted for urban warfare. Training was rigorous and realistic. Veterans like Bob Chacres, in his contributions to Checkpoint Charlie and his own accounts, describe exercises involving live infiltrations into East Berlin, where operatives posed as civilians to border test security. Albert Serklacki's memoirs, called The Autumn Man, recounts 1964 to 66 assignments, including urban commando drills that simulated stay-behind scenarios, like caching explosives in abandoned buildings, practicing lockpicking, and mastering tradecraft to avoid surveillance. Now, I want to say, on that website, there's a whole bunch of videos, and a lot of the videos are interviews of former members of the Detachment A. And if I remember right, it's like detachment /a or -a.org. One of the videos, and I've watched almost every one of them on there. One of the videos on there has them setting up tents over Otto Skorzeny and Galen's caches of weapons all over Germany. They would take tents and pitch them and they'd put razor wire around the tent so it just looked like a temporary military entity. And what those tents were doing, they hid the caches of Nazi weapons. These guys dug up the Nazi weapons of cached weapons and replaced them with NATO weapons. And they just moved site to site to site based on Otto Skorzeny's. And if you guys remember, I've talked about Operation Sunrise, where Lyman Limitzker and Alan Dulles was talking to General Wolf. And basically, Wolf had a list of people that they wanted rat-lined out of Germany and avoid Nuremberg. And in exchange for that, they gave them the maps of where all the stay-behind units were, how to contact them, the whole 9 yards, right? So they knew, based on Galen and Otto Skorzeny and all of the people that they recruited into the Galen organization, which became the CIA's version of the BND in West Germany, they knew where all these caches were. And these guys in Detachment A are going around pitching these tents over the caches of weapons, digging them up and replacing them with NATO equipment. And it's in the video. That just blew my mind, knowing what we now know about Gladio. All right. I'm not suggesting any of these people involved in this had any knowledge of what Gladio was really used for. So don't get me wrong. But these guys are on the bottom basement floor of Operation Gladio. They were Operation Gladio.
And well, that's the thing. Everything's so compartmentalized that you're out there thinking that you're doing the work that's in the best interest of America, its allies, or humanity, and you don't realize you're doing the bidding of some bad people,
some very evil people that use those weapons in domestic terror events to kill the citizens of NATO.
And then by the time you do realize it, well, now you're on the hook. And now you got to do the stuff that's not going to be so, hidden as it being bad. And if you refuse to do it, they're going to be like, well, look at the history of what you've been a part of.
Yeah. All right. So training was okay. Let's see. We did that one. All right. Let me find my place. All right. So in The Autumn Man, he recounts in his training, including urban commando drills that simulated things like blowing up buildings. They learned how to pick locks. And Warner, another one of them, Rocky Farr, Farr, wrote a book, The Depth of the Golden Hour and Return to the Future Guerrilla Hospital. He adds the medic dimension, noting that medics prepared for treating wounds in isolated places, a critical stay-behind skill. The unit's operational doctrine, as outlined by him, drew on unconventional warfare, guerrilla tactics that mirrored OSS and SOE, which is the British version of its missions in World War II. In Berlin, this translated to deep stay-behind teams equipped with radios for contacting NATO forces, gold coins for bribes, and cyanide capsules in case they were captured.
Jeez.
Yeah. News articles such as Detachment A, How Special Forces Soldiers Operated Undercover in Cold War Berlin, in Coffee or Die magazine, expose these details through veterans' interviews, revealing how operatives maintain civilian cover, blending into Berlin's nightlife while ready to activate at a moment's notice. And it's very interesting. In one of the videos, one of the guys that had not made it to several of their reunions is like the guest speaker, and he's talking about how he grew up in Germany, one of which was actually in Hitler's youth program. And he's describing, because he, spoke fluent German, that these people were brought over to the United States under that program where if you enlist in the military, you get basically at this point, it was automatic citizenship. And then they were recruited into kind of special forces, but not Detachment A directly. And almost all of them had some kind of a background where they were all German fluent speaking people. Not all of them. Some of them had to go to language school, but the ones that were originally from Germany was very important because of mannerisms, the way you hold your cigarette. And he describes all of this. And it was the technique that allowed them to blend in and reduce their visibility as an American over there. Detachment A's effectiveness stemmed from its personnel, many of whom were battle tested already in early Vietnam operations. And that's when it was the French.
I gotta say, I have to interrupt, Colonel, because I feel like you are uprooting one of my childhood TV shows that I'm just like,
don't say anything. Don't say anything.
Okay, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, no.
That's the end. Don't say anything.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so going to uproot it.
Oh my God. I saw the writing on the wall.
Yes.
All right, you're going to want to stay till the end on this one.
Detachment A's effectiveness stemmed from his personnel, many of whom, okay, I already read that. You messed me up. There was significant overlap with the military SOG, that's the Vietnam version of it, the covert group conducting black ops across Southeast Asia. Veterans like Nick Brockhausen, author of We Few and Whisper in the Tall Grass, transitioned from the Vietnamese operation reconnaissance teams inserted behind enemy lines in Laos and Cambodia to Detachment A's urban stay-behind role. Brockhausen's memoirs detail the synergy and the skills of evasion and sabotage that were directly applicable in the Berlin scenario. Project Sigma, a Vietnamese SOG component focused on long-range reconnaissance in the war zone, supplied many of these operators. Formed in 1966, Sigma teams comprising Green Berets and indigenous scouts conducted hunter-killer patrols, wiretaps, ambushes, mirroring Detachment A's sabotage. Bob Chacres, a Sigma veteran with multiple Detachment A tours between the years of 1969 and 77, exemplifies this. His experience in Sigma Roadrunner infiltrations informed Berlin training. Other overlap included Herman Adler, Ron Broughton, who was part of Project 404 in Laos, a highly top secret operation, and Jerry Paco Fontana, among roughly 50 documented crossovers, people that had operated in both AORs. These men brought resilience forged in Vietnamese jungles, survival to the urban environment. Major General Sidney Shocknow, Hope and Honor, discusses commanding Detachment A in the 1970s, noting how Vietnam vets infused the unit with tactical innovation, enhancing the stay-behind preparedness. By the 1970s, as detente eased invasion fears, Detachment A evolved under O Plan 0300 into a counterterrorism. These guys were part of the initial planning of Operation Eagle Claw, which was the 1980 Iran hostage rescue. Now, if you remember, during the Iran hostage rescue debacle that eventually fails, there were two targets. They had separated three members of the hostages in a separate building, a little bit away from where they were holding the majority of them. Detachment A's mission was this other building with the three other people in it. That was a Detachment A mission, to rescue them. Now, of course, we know how it all turned out. They all got released on Ronald Reagan's inauguration day and all of the chaos that went along. But Detachment A was involved in that. And you never hear it written about. They also were training, and I forget, I think it was Oman, where they forward deployed to help train the people that were going in. And at least two of their guys went in on one of those aircraft into Iran that, they had the helicopter and the C-130 crash and all of that other stuff. Their guys didn't get hurt, but Detachment A was part of that mission. And I've read about that. I wrote a paper in Air War College about that. And I've never heard of Detachment A. Okay. It says, yet the core stay-behind identity persisted until deactivation in 1990. I'm going to argue they were never deactivated, but whatever. And by deactivation, they mean exposed in Italy. There was an article on NATO's website, and it was authored by a SOCOM retired colonel. He is there. They have a school, like an academic school, to take classes out for special forces guys. He's on staff at that school on MacDill Air Force Base. There is a paper written by him on NATO's website that talks about stay-behind units. I found it like 3 years ago. And he was making the argument that stay-behind units shouldn't, we shouldn't be ashamed of what stay-behind units are, and that all NATO countries should have them, and they should be done overtly. There shouldn't be any covert aspect to them. We should be proud to talk about stay-behind units.
Jeez.
I was floored. I tried my best. I have a friend that retired from SOCOM to be able to get access to that school because it's behind their security perimeter at SOCOM, but never made it there yet. I'm going to get there one day. Exposure came gradually. A 1984 Newsweek article hinted at the unit, but full declassification, as I said earlier, didn't happen in 2014, which unleashed a flood of revelations. Websites like detachmenta.org, which is the one you just had up, run by veterans of that unit, offer after actions, reports, and profiles, while articles in War on the Rocks analyze stay-behind doctrines. Spyscape, which is an entity, had an article called Spies and Saboteurs. It contextualizes the CIA ties to these guys. Detachment A's stay behind legacy influences today's unconventional forces, from Ukraine's resistance with their stay behind units, and books like Snake Eater Chronicles fictionalized these operations, blending fact with thriller elements. There's another book called Be All You Can Be, which humanizes the immigrant, primarily former Nazi soldiers who served as a Cold War doctrine unit. There is also an article in today's Special Operations called We Are the Mighty, talking about how Detachment A actually shaped the Green Berets. In sum, Detachment A was more than a unit. It was a doctrine rooted in Nazi Galen's networks and tested by Vietnam's fire. Its stay-behind focus, preparing to fight from the shadows, remains a testament to the Cold War unseen battles. As we all know, Skorzeny was tried at Dachau trials in 1947. His war crime that he was accused of under the Hague Convention was wearing U.S. military uniforms in a false flag. But we all know, because I've talked about it ad nauseum, that he was acquitted because British commandos came to his defense and said, we did the same thing. So they got in the British MI6, in conjunction with Alan Dulles, got Otto Skorzeny acquitted. All right. Post-war, Otto Skorzeny escaped, in big air quotes, Allied custody in 1948 from an internment camp where he was treated like royalty. And supposedly, he had help from former SS officers dressed up like US MPs, or US MPs actually helped him as part of forming Detachment A, as I'm going to go on and illustrate. He hid out in Bavaria for 18 months before traveling to Paris, where NATO was being set up, and finally settling, because remember, he was recognized because of the big scar on his face, and they had to whisk him out of Paris and put him in Franco's Spain in order to hide him, where he lived high on the hog, walking around, owned a business, all this stuff. He worked in Spain as an engineer and an arms dealer. Imagine Otto Skorzeny selling arms as he's equipping Operation Gladio. He also set up with a partner a construction company that the U.S. Air Force contracted with to build all of the air bases in Spain. Now, a couple things weird about that. Spain was not in NATO. They were ran by a dictator, Franco. Why would we be putting Air Force bases in Spain at the time? They're not a NATO nation. It's a dictatorship. Excuse me. It's a dictatorship, and he wasn't very nice. But according to the book Skorzeny Papers, those contracts were how we were paying Otto Skorzeny. They were being ran out of the Air Force logistics. And we paid like 3 times as much for these bases as would have been warranted on a normal contracting basis back in those days. And the allegation is that that was to hide the money we were paying Otto Skorzeny to do all this shit at taxpayer dollars. Okay. So
it just makes me think.
Go ahead.
I can imagine when you saw the headlines on social media a couple of days ago. The CIA is thinking about opening up an office in Venezuela. I said, I wish I could be next to Colonel while that headline's coming out. Like, oh, yeah. Oh, all of a sudden, a new office. Or you mean we just want to pull the sign off that says CIA where our office already exists?
Yeah. His primary activities shifted to training and advisory roles for foreign governments and intelligence networks because in Spain, he had set up terrorist training camps. He was notorious for traveling to Sardinia, which is an island off the coast of Italy. They had set up a Gladio training there. And in the book that we're doing, weirdly enough, The Devil's Chessboard, it talks about the station chief, Bill Harvey, during the JFK assassination, in the lead up to it, going to Sardinia for meetings. I mean, come on. We know what goes on Sardinia. They had a huge terrorist training camp for Gladio stay-behind unit capability where they trained assassins and all kinds of other stuff. And the station chief of Rome is going to Sardinia in the lead up to the JFK assassination. Dulles traveled there. Isn't that weird? All right. Anyway.
Sounds like a planning meeting.
Sounds like a planning meeting. Okay. Scorzini's most direct post-war ties were to Reinhard Gehlen, who we already talked about. He became a CIA proxy in West Germany. During his Bavarian hideout years, 18 months, Scorzini collaborated with the Gehlen to recruit former SS and Wehrmacht officers for the Gehlen organization, which focused on espionage and establishing stay-behind units all across Europe. He was their chief trainer. This network was funded by the CIA and the Marshall Plan and the Rockefeller Foundation. It laid the groundwork for NATO's stay-behind program like Gladio in Italy. It was designed to resist Soviet occupation through sabotage and guerrilla warfare, mirroring Detachment 8's mission in Berlin. However, we all know that it was used domestically and internationally as a terrorist organization, using the skills to stage bombings, assassinations, etc. In 1952 to 1953, Gehlen, who was now CIA affiliated, dispatched Scorzini to Egypt as a military advisor to President Mohammed Naguib, where he recruited and trained Egyptian army units, security forces, and Palestinians. And do you know who one of his students was? Yasser Arafat. In commando tactics and operations against British forces in the Suez Canal and raids into Italy. Now, I want to put this in perspective. NATO staged attacks against British forces in Egypt and Israel using Otto Scorzini. That's a false flag.
You get these little teams that create this chaos to supplement a narrative, and the next thing you know, we're in major wars.
Yes. Yes. Okay. This was CIA orchestrated to build alliances in the Middle East, to manipulate countries. Once Nasser became president, he nationalized the Suez Canal. Scorzini brought in ex-Nazis like Wilhelm Fogbacher and Leopold Gleim to train thousands in sabotage and unconventional warfare tactics akin to those taught to Detachment A and their preparation in Europe. Scorzini also allegedly ran a thing called the Spider, a Nazi escape network that funneled SS officers to Latin America and the Middle East through Spain. We know all about that. It's called the Rat Lines. With Gehlen and CIA support. This extended to Argentina primarily, but they scattered them all over. And they all had roles in Operation Condor in overthrowing all of the governments in Latin America. Of course, we know about him working for Mossad in order to get rid of Egypt's rocket program after Nasser became president. All right, so that just kind of gives you the background. Detachment A, as a U.S. Army Special Forces unit in Berlin, operated in conjunction with the Gehlen Organization, where stay-behind planning drew from World War II resistant models that Skorzeny and Gehlen created. The Gehlen Organization, with Skorzeny's recruitment help, established West Germany's stay-behind cells, which paralleled NATO's Gladio and influenced Detachment A's sabotage-focused training. Skorzeny's commando style, the daring raids, false identities, and urban guerrilla tactics became doctrinal for U.S. Special Forces, including Detachment A's preparation for deep stay-behind in Berlin. Many Detachment A members with Vietnam experience embodied this hybrid Axis-inspired tactics. In the book, The Skorzeny Papers, there's several allegations made, with a lot of documentation. He alleges that Otto Skorzeny conducted training sessions with U.S. forces units in West Germany. Detachment A. Otto Skorzeny training U.S. military special forces. So Ganis had Skorzeny's personal papers. Included in the papers is a photo showing Skorzeny collaborating with U.S. intelligence. Skorzeny is said to have trained members of the U.S. Army 10th Special Forces Group at Bag Tolz, T-O-L-Z. Well, it just so happens that in one of those videos, those guys are talking about going to training at Bag Tolz. This was a major U.S. Army base post-World War II, repurposed for training the newly formed Special Forces Green Berets against threats. And Otto Skorzeny taught there. Training focused on commando tactics, sabotage, unconventional warfare, and infiltration skills from Skorzeny's World War II exploits, including false flag tactics. CIA Reinhard Gehlen's oversight. Skorzeny reportedly entered West Germany via Gehlen's network using a false identification. A document shows Skorzeny posing with U.S. officers and letters of reference, payments, and arrangements. The CIA used military attachés as Skorzeny's handler while he was in Spain. There's accounts of 2 different military officers for a period of about 7 years that were actually part of Skorzeny's handling. As far as Bag Tolz goes, there are declassified U.S. Army records that confirm 10th Special Forces Group activation there in 1952 under Colonel Aaron Bank. Books like U.S. Army Special Forces 52 to 84 note early training drew on quote-unquote experienced personnel with Weimar SS advisors. So that's a second source. William Colby, the future CIA director and ex-OSS, oversaw European Special Forces Group operations and admitted in his memoir to using ex-enemies, meaning Nazis. So there's 3. Christopher Simpson's blowback documents Gehlen organization's heavy Nazi staffing. Over 4,000 Nazi officers at one point was in the Gehlen organization, and the CIA funding that started in 1949. Skorzeny corresponded with Gehlen, according to Skorzeny's memoirs, and facilitated Nazi relocations for training. In the Odessa Files, written by Frederick Forsyth in 1972, it also talks about Skorzeny training NATO forces. There's an Israeli journalist Rowan Bergman, who references Mossad's intel ties to Skorzeny, advising U.S. units in Germany. Ex-Special Forces officer accounts claim a tall Australian SS guy, with blonde hair matching Skorzeny's description, lectured them on Panzerfaust tactics. So there's like 6 different references that all says Otto Skorzeny was training our special forces. All right. Let's go down to, and I have a whole bunch of references. Like I said, I'll post them tomorrow because there's book after book after book. Victor Marchetti in the CIA in the Cult of Intelligence said CIA hired Nazi commandos for special forces training in Germany. In chapter 5 of that book, Skorzeny matches the profile. In The Guardian, in the 1990s, there were articles on Nazi networks, references to Israeli intel on Skorzeny training NATO U.S. forces. Washington Post, in 1983, in an obituary, notes CIA Galen uses Skorzeny for anti-Soviet operations, including training. In the National Archives, there are tons of files on Skorzeny. And one of them talks about West Germany travel under alias tied to Colonel Aaron Banks, 10th Special Forces correspondence. In the Imperial War Museum in London, Oral History, it talks about ex-OSS interviews mentioning Skorzeny trainers at early NATO Special Forces exchanges. So I think that there's way more confirmation that Otto Skorzeny trained early Green Berets.
100%. That's 100%. It's what it's spelling out.
So back to your point earlier. Go ahead and tell everybody what you found out.
So as Colonel,
what were their nicknames?
Let me bring this up so everybody can see. I got it saved right here. There's so much stuff. It's just crazy that if you're not searching for it, it doesn't pop up. But once you search for it, it pops up.
Yeah.
But the A-team, folks.
That's what it was called. All of these guys, Detachment A, in their cells were called A-teams.
And I'll just read the real quick synopsis for those of you that are not familiar with this 80s TV show. The A-team follows 4 former U.S. Special Army Forces soldiers, Hannibal, Bates, B.A., Murdoch, who were wrongly imprisoned for robbing the Bank of Hanoi during the Vietnam War. After escaping to Los Angeles underground, they work as soldiers of fortune, helping innocent people against thugs and criminals while evading the military police. And then here's the 4 main characters. You have Colonel John Hannibal Smith, the leader, master of disguises and strategist who loves it when a plan comes together. Lieutenant Templeton Faceman Peck, the charming con artist who acquires necessary supplies. Sergeant Bosco, B.A., bad attitude Baracus, the powerhouse mechanic with a fear of flying. That's Mr. T. Captain H.M. Howling Mad Murdoch, the pilot who is declared insane but is brilliant.
Is that crazy? That's kind of like the Get Smart thing with chaos and control.
It is. And because when I'm listening to you, and then when you mentioned Vietnam, I was like, no way. No way.
Yes.
And there it is, right in our faces.
Yes.
Right in our faces. And now if somebody was to go search out the A-team, that's what they're going to find. Unless you specifically spell out Detachment A and include like Nazi or CIA or something like that, or Dulles, it won't populate. Other stuff populates, like stuff with computers and different weird things like that. But if you want this, Now, granted, once you're in there and you go to the links, the sublinks that are in it, you find all kinds of information. Like the one I was looking at right here is this place that you're talking about, the Bad Tools,
Yeah.
and at the SS Junker schools, and it just, I mean, when you go through there and it talks about how we took it over, which is what you were telling us about. Oh, I'm not even showing it on the screen. Um, I mean, it's crazy, crazy. It just it makes me want to just, what other style military shows are out there where they're just dropping hints and telling us about these things.
It's crazy.
It is. There's this article. This one's on the CIA.gov right here. Two external developments affecting Detachment A were the 1961 construction of the Berlin Wall 5 years after the unit arrived in Berlin. It talks about, Vietnam. There's this, I mean, just me doing my search through, this one comes from the National Archive. The Secret War for Germany, CIA's covert role in Cold War Berlin explored recently, and this one had Detachment A in it. You have right here, this is Special Forces 78, Detachment A, Berlin. I mean, and in one of them, it talks about how, I mean, it was the kind of the original undercover, how they were allowed to grow their hair out, not,
Yes.
not look like the regular guys. And it's just like,
They wore suits, they wore regular clothes, they just blended in.
well, because, the law enforcement undercover and intel
I lost you.
All right. Can you hear me, Colonel?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So we are operating off a undisclosed cell phone hotspot right now. Um, so you guys know I have different ways of internet coming into this home, and only the studio internet is affected right now. I have no idea what it is.
Probably
Um,
Detachment A.
I, that crossed my mind. That definitely crossed my mind. So if we are a little choppy, folks, I'm operating off a weak signal right now, but I can see you fine. So as long as you can see me fine, Colonel, we'll push on. But that is wild. Wild. Okay.
So I just kind of want to close with what you find when you start researching Detachment A is no one wants to connect Otto Skorzeny name to Detachment A. There's all of these, vague, nuanced overlaps, but once you realize and that's why I think so much of the material that we cover on Operation Gladio is so heavily censored or suppressed, is because once you understand it, when you find all of these other breadcrumbs, they fit nicely into the puzzle that they don't want you to see.
Well, almost feel like we should keep going. And I don't know if it's another episode or whatever you want to do, but I'm interested in seeing where else this continues. Well,
Um,
what because I know I saw someone put in the chat earlier, if we track down where these schools kind of move to, where would where would be that current special forces training today?
well, I mean, the majority of it's at Fort Bragg, just like the Schools of America moved to Fort Benning.
Hmm.
These are the same. So understand that at the time, Fort Bragg was not Special Forces headquarters, right? The experts in all of this evilness was the Nazis. They had done it all. So just like in the warfare and they did not want to bring most of this training back to the United States initially. They wanted this training outside because this was all under the guise of this or under the control of the CIA. So as long as you set up something like the School of Americas in Panama, where it's out of sight, out of mind, where the School of Americas taught people how to kidnap people, torture people, and kill them, just like we were describing right here. Okay. Their enhanced interrogation had literally nothing to do with waterboarding. It had everything to do with sticking electrodes up every orifice in a person's body and shocking the shit out of them, to include putting them on their penis, everything. They stuck them in their inner ear. The torture is out of this world that was taught to not just special forces, but to all of these national police and National Guard, especially under Operation Condor. I mean, there's witness statements of all of this shit that they did to people. I mean, sometimes they skin people alive. I just talked about a guy in this book, The Devil's Chessboard, that had worked in the Dominican Republic and had came to America and was a college professor. He was teaching. He wasn't given professorship status. He was teaching there while he was getting his PhD. And he began writing, this is before the JFK assassination. He began writing about the Dominican Republic and the CIA backing of the dictator Trujillo down there. So the CIA helped Trujillo. They used Robert Mayhew, a contractor, to kidnap this guy. They drugged him. They put him on an aircraft and they flew him back to the Dominican Republic, and they boiled him alive in hot water. and then dumped his water in the ocean, or his body in the ocean. And this is crap the CIA did on a regular basis. Now, again, I'm not suggesting Detachment A did any of this stuff, but this is what they taught people to do
I mean,
in order to interrogate them.
when your early foundational schools were at the same place that the SS was doing training, I mean, it's kind of a
Exactly. Exactly. And you're being trained by SS officers. The entire foundation, according to this, of the 10th Special Forces was based on training initially provided by Nazis.
and it's critical right now because and people don't have to agree with me, but this is my opinion. And Colonel, you may agree with me, but a lot of the stuff, the chaos that we're seeing unfold in our country right now is by these people.
100%.
It's there. And a lot of these people that we think that are showing up on scene, that are reporting the news, and not all of them, because some of my friends are out there and those are good guys, but some of them are out there because they're also amplifying the signal noise of what's going on from these sides. And you think, well, because they're self-proclaimed conservative or MAGA or America First, they have to be good, but they're not. They're providing each other the ammo to inflame this entire thing. All the Gladio stuff that you have been teaching us about, Colonel, in the last 85 chapters, all of it has been playing out in real time since we started doing Gladio.
Correct.
And now we're going to see the escalation of it. Like that's we're getting to the choke point. They're not going to give up. They're not. And so everything that we've heard in every Gladio operation, what I would tell people to start paying attention to now is every time you saw whether it was these color revolutions or whether it was one of these, kidnappings or plots to create a war, look at what it looked like when things started to get, hazy and unstable. And what did these Gladio operatives do? Because they're not changing the playbook. All they've done is change the nationalities, change the language, and change the place where it took place and uniforms. That's it. Other than that, it's the same thing over and over and over. Sometimes even the same damn people's lineage.
Yes. Well, if you go back to the Albert Einstein Institute and you look at their playbook on how they would do all of the ground operations, who did they use to do that? A Special Forces retired colonel, along with Gene Sharp, created all of the curriculum. So basically, you had that same operation in 2004 in Ukraine, and they got what they were after without going total violence. In 2014, their efforts to regime change there was not getting the same traction because they had already tried it 10 years earlier. And there were people standing up going, no, I see what you're doing. You're not going to do this. And oh, by the way, in Ukraine, they actually used real Nazis to do it. In 2014, it required the Maidan massacre to happen in order to finally get the regime change. And so you are heading straight into the potential of a mass casualty terror attack that will have the fog of war of who did what to whom. And we already see with the couple of incidents that they've had in order to like people actually trying to hurt the ICE agents on the ground, bringing weapons. And I'm not saying you can't bring a weapon, but you certainly can't bring a weapon and then commit a crime with the weapon on your possession. So you see that every day that goes by, there's an escalation of strategy of tension. And that's all the stuff that we've learned.
I'm trying to look.
In the past is that there's a mass casualty event.
I was trying to find something I wanted to show you that feeds into this, but I'll probably have to save it for next week because I had sent it to somebody a couple years ago and I wanted to find it. But did I ever share the story with you of I thought I heard a noise. Did I ever show the story of that I told you that I was investigating somebody and I had found out that, and this was off the FBI report, the open source information, he's had to dig to find it. But one of the J6ers that the FBI was going after, and he was Ukrainian, and he was part of the Ukrainian Color Revolution. And what had stuck out to me is in the FBI documentation of him at J6, he's wearing a scarf, and it's the same scarf that they wore during the Color Revolution in Ukraine. And the FBI documents this. I can't think of his name right now, but anyways, the FBI they find him through their the geofencing of the phones allegedly that they did in the White House. So they have this guy outside the White House, or I'm sorry, not the White House, the Capitol, and then they have him inside the Capitol, and they have him marked every place he went in the Capitol, because I seen in the FBI report it has all the points where he pinged inside the Capitol building. Well, they catch this guy at the San Francisco International Airport, and they stop him. Now, they don't say the contents of that conversation, but they let him go.
Yeah, you told me about that.
And then this guy ends up going to Belarus. And
you know what the content of that conversation was? A phone call from the CIA telling him to let him go.
I 100% agree with you on that. He's one of ours. Let him go. And now, or then he went to Belarus, and then from Belarus, I want to say one of the main mainstream headliners picked it up for like a day or two because he was seeking asylum from Belarus. I think, was it into Russia, or might have even been into Belarus. I don't remember that. It's like I said, I'm going just off memory from a couple of years ago. The things they had him. Now, here's what's crazy. I kept researching him farther than that, Colonel, and I found out he got stopped, detained, and ticketed by the police out up in Northern California during the wildfires that had happened years earlier. And you remember during those wildfires, everybody said that they were finding arsonists and Molotov cocktails. Well, they caught him in an area that was, what do you call it when they cordon it off so people can't go in there?
Right, just cordon it off.
Yeah, but there was a word they gave for it. But anyways, they catch him in there.
It's a restricted area.
Yeah, it's a restricted area. So they catch him and his brother in there. And he ends up getting a ticket, and he goes to court and he fights it, but it was nothing. He didn't get no time for it. So this guy has a history of being a part of these operations, at least so it seems, right? And yeah, it's wild. I will look for his name, and I'll even bring up that report for you guys next week if anybody's interested in seeing it. But
that's crazy.
It is wild.
And isn't it interesting how you look at all of that stuff very differently now?
100%. Because here's the thing. I get it. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth's a busy man right now. But if one of his intelligence guys is looking for intel somewhere in the alt media airwaves, I know this show, Gladio, is going to pop up there at some point. If not mine, the one that you do. Like it's going to hit that. Listen, they have AI that's searching it for anything that has to do with quasi or even resembles military intelligence. This show will definitely check those algorithm markers. And so if they were to just, and they can run, they don't have to, for people like, well, they don't got time to watch, 85 episodes. You're right. But they can get the transcript, run that transcript through the AI intelligence that they have, and that it'll pinpoint all the things they need to do. And they can do that in a matter of just a few hours. Like, they have the capabilities to do that, folks. And the reason he would want that information, because I would go back to Detachment A, to Dulles, to all these originators, and I would track their entire military profile. You have the means to look at it, whether you do it formally, informally. You have the means to track these guys, everything that was on their books, everything, even the hidden shit. You can track it and follow all of those relationships, and legacy families. Follow the legacy families of these people and see if there's any relationships, direct lineage that exists that's in the military or the DOJ or the intelligence apparatus now.
So, on that note, you know that we have an inkling based on our research of what these people are trained to do. We also know that many of them leave and become private military contractors for the CIA.
Yep.
Doing that link analysis would not be difficult at all.
No.
And it would behoove anybody in a position of power to do that. Because these are the trained assets that you will eventually find behind all of this.
And they will look like the guy that you've liked for the last 20 years. Because that's his job, to make you like him, to make you trust him or her. Meanwhile,
I am still amazed 3 years into this that there's so much information that's been hidden from us. But I'm eternally grateful for God putting me on this journey to, you know, and you go back and you look at it. I don't know what made me pick up the book that I did. And one book led to another book to all of this stuff. And, you know, obviously hours and hours every day researching. Because to me, the mindset now, and honestly, I don't think anybody who's not very, very familiar with this can completely understand what's going on in the world right now. You can't possibly understand all of it without knowing this. And I'm not suggesting they don't know this, but you have to know this.
you have to. And because it's obviously, as technology advance, you know, through the hourglass of time with Operation Gladio, that means these people listen, there's obviously the really evil ones, right? Like what's the one guy that created the machine guns and all those different things?
Warbell,
yeah. They're like those, there's those psychopaths, but then you have the other ones who I would argue are just as effective, but in a different realm, and they're podcasters. They're alt media. They're social media influencers. And all they're doing is providing the top cover and the narrative and agenda for the, you know, the war battles that are out there doing it. These are the people telling you the narrative to believe it or support it. And they're working in cahoots, and that's just straight craziness. And they can identify it. They can. If they put a team with 25, 30 people together and they give them access to some of the technology that I know is available. I know you could do some real damage to these guys in their infrastructure. You just could. And I hope that they hear that and they listen. There's a Rumble rant that came in during the show. $20 from an old timer. Says, "Good evening, Colonel. Are quote posting helping your reach?" We told people a couple weeks ago to do that. So are you seeing
So not immediately I didn't, but when they changed, so there's no doubt my account has been suppressed. But when they changed the algorithm a few days ago, Elon Musk came out and they made this big announcement. It has made a significant difference to my account.
Well, there you go, folks. So keep quote posting and
Yeah.
get in the comment section of the Operation Gladio, and let's bring it back. Hashtag Operation Gladio. You know what, you guys, go to Secretary War Hegseth, okay, and say, "Sir, you need to track Colonel Towner's work. Hashtag Operation Gladio." Let's trust me, folks. They see it. I promise you, I have firsthand knowledge. They see it. So go and do it. You know, sometimes they're waiting for us. They know the information, but they need the public opinion to support why all of a sudden they're looking into these things. And so, yeah, just do with that. Colonel, any final thoughts you want to share with anybody? And then I got a cool little video trailer to show everybody on the way out. I'm going to send us back in time.
No, I just welcome everybody to our 4:00 learning session, Monday through Friday on X and on Rumble at the Colonel's Corner. And Warhamster and I have moved our weekly series that we do on secret societies to Friday at noon. So this Friday we'll be with Warhamster again.
Well, there
That's
you go.
it.
And then I'm going to do us a real quick Rumble ad so I could pay some bills and try to get some more extra internet security in here. This one comes from Snark Magnets. And if you're on a different platform, you got to get a Rumble to see it. Some people journal. Other people buy Snark Magnets. These are bold, sarcastic magnets with quotes like, "Witness the void where I once cared. Your approval is not required. And I drink coffee for your safety." You ever get tired of explaining yourself to people who didn't listen anyway? Snark Magnets lets you say exactly what you're thinking without starting an argument. Fringe, locker, cubicle. If it's your space, it's fair game. Made in the USA by a small creator who understands the assignment. Reclaim your space. Use code RUMBLE10 for 10% off your entire order at thingsofholding.com. thingsofholding.com. You get small creators like this, folks that are trying to do something and they're on these platforms. Go out there and support them. You won't believe the difference it makes when a lot of people come together and do something like that. So with that, you guys, I'm glad to be back. Tomorrow I'll be doing a shorter version of Just Alpha since we didn't have Monday's show, and we'll go from there. So enjoy this trailer on the way out. Y'all probably already know which one it is, but we talked about it earlier and it's a lot of fun. So I'll catch you guys on the next side. God bless and simplify, everybody.
God bless.